So, you want dynamite darts content? Well, Alex Moss and Burton DeWitt have you covered. Love these guys. For bullseyes, bounce outs, and darting brilliance, keep it right here. You are listening to the weekly Dartscast. Now, I'm Canadian and often get asked how Canadians call out a maximum, a 180? Well, it sounds something like this. 100, eh? T.
Hello and welcome to a new episode of the weekly Dartscast. Alex Moss here, joined as always by darts statistician Burton DeWitt. How you doing?
I'm doing fairly well. How are you?
I'm doing okay, thank you. Well as a Colchester fan can do after this weekend, losing to a team in the 8th tier in the FA Cup. But aside from that, yeah, I'm doing well. And as we said on our last show on Thursday, I had to hang tight to find out when the next episode was going to be, and we've managed to fit one in. A couple of guests coming up as well, but we'll start off with the World Cup and talking only an hour or so after the finals finished, a first PDC World Cup title for Wales. Could this be the first of many World Cup titles that we see for Gerwyn Price and Johnny Clayton?
At least for Gerwyn Price, you have to say yes, just because he is unquestionably one of the three best players in the world right now, and he's much younger. Johnny Clayton is still the Welsh number two. We'd expect him to still be the Welsh number two, at least for the next few years. There's no signs that he is slowing down. There's no signs that there's anyone coming up immediately to catch him for that spot. And they play very well together. So you have to put them year in, year out, at least for the next few years, as the favorite. But Johnny Clayton, he's not as old as Sky once indicated he was when on his World Championship debut, but he's not quite as young a man as Gerwyn Price is. So his amount of time near the top is probably a bit more limited than Gerwyn's. That said, they could easily, over the next 5 years, win another 2 or 3. So you think that he will be, for some time, a favorite to win it. Gerwyn Price could still be one of the favorites 15 years from now. And as long as he has a good enough partner, he'll have every chance to win it. I will even go as far to say, as you say right now, they're probably the favorite heading into next year, even if Gary Anderson and Peter Wright are back on the Scottish team as the defending champions, as two top 15 or top 20 players that have experience and chemistry together. They'll be one of, if not the favorite next year. I don't think this will be the only World Cup title Johnny Clayton wins. I am all but positive it won't be the only that Gerwyn Price wins.
Yeah, and they said it on the Sky broadcast after the final. Mark Webster, who of course got to 2 World Cup finals, he said that he felt like this would be the first of a few World Cups that we'd see these two get. And Wales, they've been knocking on the door on this competition ever since it started in 2010. Mark Webster and Barry Bates 2-1 up in that first final, and it took Raymond van Barneveld and the GOAT to beat him in that final. And then 2017, Mark Webster and Gerwyn Price losing out to the Netherlands. They've come close a few times before. These two, though, going into this weekend, they were among the favourites with the bookmakers, at least with the Netherlands and with England. Question marks around Netherlands and England, how they were going to get on. Not so many question marks around Wales, though, because, as you say, Gerwyn Price is one of the best players in the world right now. You can make a strong case that he is the best, and he is in that conversation right now for who could be the world number one heading into 2021. Talk a little bit about Johnny Clayton as well, because this year he's had a very good year. He's beaten Michael van Gerwen in the Masters. He's got to a Euro Tour final, the semi-finals of the European Championship. He's now won this World Cup as well. He's got a 9-darter on TV, semi-finals of the UK Open, and he's 11th on that list of averages over the season during the Players' Championship. So he's had a very good year, and he's not been around very long, a little bit like Gerwyn Price as well. Johnny Clayton came onto the tour 2015. I was having a look back to that Q School that he had, and going into that final day of Q School, he was nowhere near getting a tour card and managed to win one outright on that final day. And you mentioned that debut that he had in the World Championship. He beat Gerwyn Price in that debut. So these two have had some history together, and you could tell from the weekend that they get on very well. And looking at the stats as well, these two over the course of the weekend averaged 98 between them. 12 or so, well, a little over 12 or so months ago now. Scotland, I think their average was around 97. Could I see Scotland beating this Wales team? I think that would be a really good game. And over the course of the weekend, who came close to beating Wales? Well, I think you can only say it was Australia, that first singles game between Gerwyn Price and Simon Whitlock. Whitlock having 5 match starts, and if he'd have won that, Damon Heta against Johnny Clayton in that second singles, we saw Damon go and win that game. We don't know what it'd have been like if the score was the other way around going into it, but you'd have fancied Australia to do the job. They were playing at a top level as well, but I think given that they've won this title, Johnny as well, his first TV title and the way that Gerwyn Price is playing, I think, right now you have to install them as the favourites when this 2021 World Cup goes ahead.
Now, for Michael Smith and Rob Cross, they reached their first World Cup final, and believe it or not, England's first in 4 years since 2016 for the former champions. Though for Smith and Cross themselves, do you think this was their best chance of winning a World Cup?
Quite possibly, and again, looking at the ages of these players, Michael Smith was born 3 days before Rob Cross. Both of them are 30, so they do have a long time left in the game, and this weekend they didn't play at their best. You'd probably say out of the two, Michael Smith played better than Rob Cross. He did struggle for a lot of those games, and even in the quarterfinals, Roby John Rodriguez, who be having nightmares right now, he had the 4-match starts to beat Rob Cross and for Austria to go through 2-0 in that quarterfinal and not have to go to the doubles in the end. And as it did, it went to the doubles and England coming through 4-3 in that one. And even that first singles game as well, Michael Smith 3-0 up, and got to give a shout out Mensah Suljovic, an unbelievable run of 4 legs to come back and win that. But England, they did ride their luck at times, and it has been 4 years since we've seen England get to a World Cup final. These are the first two to do it since the best ever team in World Cup history, Phil Taylor and Adrian Lewis. Looking at the order of merit as well going into next year, but of course Michael Smith will be defending that World Championship final money. There's some players in there that will fancy getting into them World Cup spots. You've got obviously Rob Cross, Michael Smith, Nathan Aspinall, James Wade, Ian White. He's not too far off. Dave Chisnall, Glenn Durrant, of course, he'll now be defending money next year, but he's right up there in the rankings and not too far away if he has a good World Championship. So when you look at the Wales team, there's not anyone else in the top 64 of that order of merit, aside from, I think, Jamie Lewis might be in there. He might have just fallen out, but that team's looking pretty set for the next few years. England, I think we could see a few changes. So as far as Michael Smith and Rob Cross being definites for next year, I don't think you could say that right now. So I think it could be an opportunity they'll look back on and think, wow, that might have been our best chance. You never know.
Yeah, and start with Michael Smith. You mentioned he's defending that world final money from his run to the final in 2019. Obviously, he could defend it. The money hasn't dropped off yet. If he gets to the final, well, that's probably his spot in the team next year set. But once that drops off, he's no longer the English number 2. He falls behind Nathan Aspinall. But Nathan Aspinall also will be defending money early next year because that UK Open title from 2019, he'll be defending that, as Rob Cross will be defending runner-up money in that, will come up in March or late February, depending on what the calendar is. You have James Wade, you have Dave Chisnall, you have Glenn Durrant, Ian White, all right there on Michael Smith's toes, within 25,000 pounds of him when World Championship money falls off. So there's a lot of competition for that spot in the team. And then you have some players who are good enough to go on a deep run at the World Championship and move up the rankings, like Joe Cullen, Chris Dobie, Adrian Lewis even. We haven't been talking about Jackpot, but what if he finds some form? He always seems to at the World Championships. So Michael Smith's spot is immediately under pressure. The one thing Rob Cross has going for him, assuming that the World Cup goes back to its normal spot in June, that's before the bulk of Rob Cross's order of merit money comes under threat. Because if you look back at 2019, he won the World Match Play. He won the European Championship. That's over 200,000 pounds. That's a good 40% of his money. He will not have to defend that before the World Cup. He will be defending the UK Open final money, but the rest of that isn't there. So he does have some room to play with. He's not playing well enough right now. Even this past weekend, he struggled mightily on the doubles despite making the final. His scoring was there in spurts, but he missed a bucket load of doubles at crucial times. Easily could have lost that match to Dimitri Vandenberg, easily could have lost some of his other matches, and it's not what we expect from Rob Cross. He needs to get back to his best because next year is a huge year for him, especially that second half when that World Match Play and that European Championship money is up to defend. But he'll have most likely another chance in the World Cup next year. Michael Smith, he might have one next year if he gets his game together. You definitely expect at some point in his career he'll be back in the position even if he falls out. But this was a big opportunity, especially with Michael Van Guren injured, especially with the two top Scottish players not competing. In the end, they weren't the best team in the final. They weren't the best team in this weekend. They had the ability to be, but they weren't.
More World Cup chat coming up, but first let's hear from a player who made his debut in the tournament at the weekend. Here's our chat with the Latvian number 1, Madars Razma.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by Latvia's number 1, Madars Razma. Thanks very much for the time, Madars. How you doing?
Cheers,
years, I'm I feel very good and ready for the next tournaments.
Well, we'll come on to the World Cup in a moment, but it's the first time that we've had you on our show for a couple of years. We had you on just after you reached your first PDC ranking final. Shortly after that, you had the World Championship qualifiers. You just narrowly lost out in that final round and had to go back to Q School. How big of a disappointment was that to get over back then?
Yeah, of course, I felt disappointed when I lost. I think I was 6-5 up and then missed double to qualify for the first Alipali. But, I need to learn from every game when I lose, and I try to learn, and then I always, if I lost, then the first minutes, hours, sometimes days, very hard to understand that. But but I need to looking for positive in every. I'm still young. It's just my fourth year in the PDC. Okay, maybe not just, but still feel like I can do something big in darts.
And it's fair to say you got over that disappointment, an impressive week at the European Q School quarter-final, final and semi-final to finish top of that order merit and win back your tour card. What was the feeling like when you had that tour card back? Because we know how hard Q School is to get through that and get that tour card.
If you remember the first tour card I won in UK, and before my first Q School I played in the BDO and I was top. No, I played well, and that when I go to Q School, my first Q School, I think it will be easy to not easy to win, but not so hard like it was. And then the next Q School was much easier to focus because I know how hard it is to win this tour card, and then I focused a lot and just played my game, and of course my experience was much bigger than the first one, and then that was hard, but just focus game by game, and finally I was in.
And when we look back at 2019, that one of the big milestones that you achieved was getting that debut at the PDC World Championship via the Nordic and Baltic Tour, and we've seen you, of course, as you mentioned, playing the BDO, the World Championships there. But what was it like making more history for Latvia and being the first Latvian to play in that tournament?
No, of course, I'm proud to represent my country at every time, anywhere where I play. It's World Championship or just European Tour or just Pro Tour, any other Pro Tour event. Yeah, of course, much more people start to follow darts in Latvia, and not only in Latvia. Actually, Darius did a good job before as well, and then a little bit more players start to play darts and come to national ranking tournaments, and then just what I want to see more players in the Q School. Okay, maybe Q School's will be expensive for Latvians, but in Nordic and Baltic Tour, I want to see more Latvians. And this year, just we played 1 weekend in Finland, but played 6 or 7, I think, Latvians. Not sure, I can't remember. But that's good to see more players from Latvia, and I think that's one of the reasons why they go to play. Because I qualified for World Championship,
And this year, of course, it's been a strange year with the pandemic, and when the PDC Tour got shut down in March. How were things back home in Latvia, and how did you spend those 4 months without the darts?
I have much more time at home to practice darts because I don't need to travel a lot. It's much better for me to travel to travel for 5-6 days than not like every weekend. Because for traveling I lost a lot of time. I have time for my family. Family is my like doping. If my family is good, then I feel much better in darts. I don't know. Maybe this is a good year for me because I have more time to practice. It's hard to practice against someone, but at home I have time enough to practice. And that's why this is a good year for me.
And when we saw the tour get back up and running with the summer series, you had a couple of last 16s, and then a few months later we saw the autumn series and another final for you, some impressive wins on the way, beating the likes of Ian White, Devon Peterson in the semi-finals. How pleased were you with that run?
I felt very, very good. That was in autumn series, I think, in September. I know I still believe myself, I can win a tournament. This not the first final, when I played, yeah. And then just maybe a bit hard to play against. I played in the final against Peter Wright, yeah, and mental against him because I played against him a lot of times and always lost. Just start from 0-6, then 1-6, 2-6, 3-6, and then now it was time to beat him. but but just not playing best of 11 legs, but best of 13, I think, or best of 15, yeah, first 8, yeah, and then that was hard play against him mental, but happy to reach my second final, yeah, in the PDC.
Well, let's get on to this past weekend, and firstly I owe you an apology because on last week's show we were talking about countries that could get that future call up for the World Cup, and I personally forgot about Latvia, but my co-host Burton quickly corrected me and mentioned yourself as a player that could get into that World Cup. Start of last week, of course, we saw Singapore unfortunately have to pull out of the World Cup, Portugal getting that call up. Were you on standby after that in case a second team pulled out, and when did you get the call to say we've had another team pull out and you're in?
Yeah, Dean, my manager, he called me and he told me that Latvia will be the next reserve after Portugal, and then Singapore can go to Austria, and then Portugal in, and then we are the next. Yeah, I know that early then on Wednesday, but who knows who can go and who fly to Austria and who not. That was just option, but I still focused to this week for Coventry and just wait. Yeah.
So you get the call up to play in the World Cup, and you were travelling to Austria while the tournament had just started on that Friday afternoon. When did you get to Salzburg, and what was the preparation like, knowing that you were going to be the last game of the day and you were still waiting for your result for your COVID test as well? How did the whole preparation go for that first game?
I think we lost all focus for the first game because but maybe that's better because we was a lot of problems till COVID test as well, because my luggage, we rent car in Vienna, and a lot of problems before. That's why maybe we save our nerves before our game. If you understand me, just wait for result. Okay, we don't have a time to be nervous before our game. Just go play and enjoy. That was easy. And the next day, if you saw my post on Twitter, then I played so nervous. I don't know why, but I played so nervous. And Giannis still fly from day before because he also was so happy, of course, and he walk. He like fly, not walk around. Yeah.
And it was a thrilling debut against Hong Kong. Some late night drama on that first day, surviving the one match start, and your partner Giannis, that 96 finish to get it back to 4-4. And how proud of a moment was that for the pair of you to win on your debut in the World Cup?
Happy to win, of course, the first game, because all other tournaments, important big tournaments, I lost always first round, like the PDC World Championship the first time, last year was as well. Yeah, happy to win, and
so you fall short in the second round against Belgium, but when you look back on the weekend, and you posted on Twitter as well that Giannis, it looks like he's going to go to Q-School in January, try and get that tour card. What was the reaction been like, though, back home to what you and Giannis have achieved?
I told him that he needs to go, because if you never know when will be the next time. This is good money. There we want good money for to invest that in darts in the future. And I told him, you never know when will be the next time. Maybe never. Okay, maybe not never, but maybe after just 3-4 years, and that can be too late. And he said, of course, he want to play darts. He have ambitions as well, and just he's still looking for experience. He's practicing darts in England, and can be better country where to practice darts, because a lot of great players he will go. I'm sure. I'm sure. Just who knows when will be in January, in February, in March.
Definitely. Well, we've got to ask you about your treble 19s as well, because we've seen on the Euro Tour, the Players' Championships, and of course the World Cup at the weekend, Paul Nicholson calling you the treble 19 machine. When did you start to use the treble 19 more and have all that success? Was it this year, or has it been something that you've had in your game for a long time?
In summer series, yeah, I remember. I can't remember which day, but I started throw to 19s in summer series. And actually, the first time I throw to 19. When I qualified for both European tours, it was in March, I think. Before the coronavirus pandemic. Yeah, that was the first time, and I felt very comfortable. I played very well, and just start to practice a bit more at home to treble 19s, and that's working. Okay, maybe not every time, but 95% games it's working. And if I can, then why not?
Definitely. Well, lastly, it's a massive week coming up now for you and a lot of players. The Grand Slam qualifier later today when we're talking, and then the Winter Series starting tomorrow. There's spots up for grabs for the Players' Championship finals, the World Championship as well. How are you feeling about this week, and what are the goals for you to try and achieve this week?
I will try to focus just game by game. I'm not thinking about Wednesday or Friday now. Just I will try to focus game by game, and I will try to do maximum what I can, and then we'll see. But yeah, it will be a bit. No, I feel it'll be better because already looks like already qualified for Players' Championship finals, and then Alibaba as well. And that's the mental. That will be easy. No, a bit better. Yeah, easy to play. But anyway, yeah, game by game, and then we'll see the final result.
Well, best of luck for this week, and congratulations again on this past weekend, your World Cup debut, and we wish you all the best for the rest of this year, and thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks again to Madars for joining us, and it was a up and down World Cup, of course, another event unfortunately being played behind closed doors. But what would you pick out as your highlights and lowlights from the tournament?
I can fold them up into one and the same, and that's the pressure of playing for your country, because it brings out to some players the best from them. Kim Huybrechts being a fantastic example of it, not just this year, but in many years for him representing Belgium. How, you go back a few years ago and his brother had the highest average ever posted by a Belgian, and the following day Kim Huybrechts ups that by having one of the highest averages ever posted by anyone in the competition. And, you saw it again this year, averaging 108 against one of the players of the weekend in Jeff Smith, and just being enough to help them over the line. But you see, the pressure work hit in the other ways, and you see situations where both players miss double after double when the match is on the line. That last leg between Rob Cross and Dimitri Vandenberg in the semifinal, where both of them had three in hand on multiple occasions and couldn't hit that winning double. Dimitri a little unlucky, had a bounce out. Rob Cross had a couple on the outside. But you see that pressure of playing for your country, and it just makes it tense because both players are feeling that same need to win and the weight on their shoulders, which you don't always see even in a tense last leg decider somewhere else. I think it's both a highlight and a low light. It's just crushing for Dimitri Vandenberg that he lost that match, but it's also equally ecstatic for Rob Cross that he was able to, especially having just talked about him, the struggles he's been through this year, that he was able to grind out a win and get his country into a World Cup final. And you see it in other matches, go back to the first round, that Hong Kong-Latvia match. You just heard from Madars Razma. That's another match where Hong Kong had a couple of match starts, weren't all that poorly thrown, couldn't get over the line. And you could see for all four players out there what it meant. I think that's both the highlight and the low light of the tournament. And it's what also makes it such a great event.
I mean, for me personally, the highlights I had really got to give a shout out to Canada and guests that we had on the show last time out, Matt Campbell. It was his second tournament on TV, and he really did impress. I thought he was one of the hidden gems from the weekend, if you like, in this tournament more than any other. Okay, this and probably the World Championship in terms of TV events. These are the two events where you do unearth those players that you maybe not quite heard of before, you've not seen too much of, and he was. I thought he was brilliant over the weekend. He had a a 96 average in one of his singles games. I think that was in the game against New Zealand, and then the game against Dimitri van der Berg, 160, 120 checkouts. He was superb, and a lot of the talk, and we're going to come on to it in a moment in our next question, is going to be about the format potentially, or what we could see happen with this tournament going forward. And one of the highlights has got to be that quarterfinal session this afternoon when we're talking still in Sunday for me at least anyway. But all four of those quarterfinals go into the pairs, which was really good to see, and especially that England-Austria game. We had all 21 legs played, and we really didn't know which way that one was going to go until that final match start in that doubles game went in, because both teams had chances during that tie to seal it off. And the Wales-Australia game as well, that was a really tight one all the way through. And as it turned out, for me anyway, those were the two best teams in the tournament, and that turned out to be the final really. Whoever won that was going to go on and win the whole thing. And if I'm looking at lowlights, really got to go with that second day, the Saturday, because there was 8 games in that second round, and only one of them going to the pairs, which was a shame. There was a lot of really one-sided games. There was a few tight games during the day. I think there was Dimitri van der Berg, Madars Razma was one, Danny Noppert and Jesus Nogueira as well. But aside from that, really a lot of really one-sided games, and didn't make for a great spectacle, if you like. But that was, aside from that, though, it was great to see this event go on. And we've spoken about it in the past on this show. This event was going to be a big one for the PDC to make sure that they got all 64 players, all 32 nations. And we did see a couple of nations drop off during the week, one at the start of the week, one just before. But we were able to get 2 nations come in, make their debut, and make it a full quota of 32 teams, which was great to see.
I thought we had a policy not to mention the man who beat Mark Walsh in a challenge to a final on this show, but I guess that policy's gone out the door. Now, this was, of course, the 10th staging of the PDC World Cup. It debuted, as you mentioned, in 2010, where some guy won the title. They didn't have one in 2011, but it's been every year since then. And it seemed like there was more talk than in recent year about changing up the format, which has gone unchanged since the second year. What do you see for the future of the event?
Yeah, and I'll come on to the format in a moment, but one thing I do want to touch on, and it has come about because of what we've seen in the last week with the 2 replacements, the 2 new nations, Portugal and Latvia coming in. And we spoke last week which teams we'd like to see come in, and I, for some reason, completely forgot about Latvia. Luckily, the PDC didn't, because they were the ones that came in to replace China, who, unfortunately, I believe they were at the airport. They were ready to get their flight to get over to Austria, and a technicality with something to do with how they were getting over there. They weren't able to come over, but Latvia were able to get in there. They were the ones that took their place, which was good to see. And both won their first round games, which, okay, when this event goes ahead next year, we're expecting it to be in that slot. It's usually in around June time. You'd expect Portugal and Latvia to get that chance again to get another go at it in the World Cup. And then that leaves the 2 teams that missed out this year, Singapore, China. I think you'd expect Singapore to come back in. The Lims, they're fans' favourites. Everyone likes to see them go up against the big boys, and they've had some big scalps in the past. So I expect them to be back in. China as well. I think you'd probably expect them to be back in because they want to make sure they've got that Asian representation in the tournament, and China are ones that you will be able to get players in there in any other year. So there are going to be nations that I think are going to miss out unless they decide to extend the amount of teams in it. And there will be a few looking over their shoulder. Italy still not yet to get a win in this World Cup. The Czech Republic, again, they're a team that have not won one yet, but they've got probably the best team they've ever had. So I expect them to be in there. But certainly Italy, Denmark, Hungary, teams that haven't got a tour card holder at the minute, I think they will be a little bit nervous going into next year, thinking, will we get that spot in the World Cup again? But yeah, just touching on the format, a lot of talk on social media, and good to see Matt Porter as well. He was on Twitter as well, talking to a few fans about it, and it kind of worked both ways, didn't it? We saw on the Saturday hardly any doubles. On the Sunday afternoon, we were inundated with the doubles. It was good to see, and it is results dependent in those singles games, whether we do get doubles or we don't. So yeah, I think I would like to see maybe a change in the format. Some people saying they'd like to see maybe best of 19 in the second round. I'm not quite sure about that. Given it's a long format, we could see some one-sided games potentially. I'd probably look towards maybe a set format to go best of 5 sets, and then the games are still close, and you do have that maybe, best of 5 legs in each set. The games are still close going into that final set. Even if a team's 2 sets up, a team has got a chance of coming back still. And we're always crying out for more set play in the tour, so maybe that could be a way to do it.
Technically speaking, the second round is already set play. It's just you have the two singles matches, each is a set, and then the doubles match. But I do think there needs to be more of that pairs. The pairs format is what makes this unique. You don't get that after the first round unless the singles matches are split. And you talked about it for the last question. On that Saturday, we ended up with one pairs match across the 8 matches. And that ended up being an extremely one-sided affair because, well, you had the best team in the competition, Wales, playing it, and they won 4 clear legs. There needs to be a way to get more pairs in. And I think I agree with you. I think best out of 19 might be a little too long. I think I like that idea of going to set play. But if you have best of 5 sets, you end up similarly with that same thing as best out of 19. If a country wins 3 straight sets, that's the same as winning a best out of 17 match, 9 legs to whatever. So you haven't cut that much off it. So maybe it should be set play like it is now, with best out of 7 leg sets, but all 3 matches are pairs matches. And that way you get pairs, but it's set play first to 4 legs. I want more pairs matches in here. You could also move it to starting off with the pairs match instead of having a doubles decider, have a doubles opener. I don't like that because then you end up having a singles match to determine if it's 1-1. They need to figure out some way to get more pairs matches in the competition. There's not enough of that right now. And you still have the uniqueness of playing for your country, but beyond that, when you have those singles matches, it's just the same as any other event, and that takes away something from it.
Now we'll move on to our second guest on this week's show, and it is with this year's BDO World Championship runner-up, Jim Williams.
I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the former BDO major winner, Jim Williams. Thanks for the time, Jim. How you doing?
Yeah, no worries. All is good with me, yeah. Good.
Good to hear. Well, it's the first time we've had you on the show since we were at the O2 for the BDO World Championship in January. Feels like a long time ago now. We spoke after your win against Paul Hogan in the quarterfinals. Then you get through the semi-finals. How were you feeling on the day of the final?
Yeah, it was all really good, really. I felt really confident that week. But, yeah, obviously we had a bit of bad news in the morning before the final, which a bit of a dampener on it. But, yeah, no, it was all good. Yeah, just didn't go the way I wanted, really.
Yeah, it was a close final against Wayne Warren from 4-all. He pulls away to win 7-4. But I wanted to ask you as well, first, after the long break in the middle of the game, was something like 20 or 25 minutes. What did you think of all of that?
Yeah, well, it got dropped on us a little bit. Like, both me and Wayne, we went back to the back room. We had, like, sort of 2 minutes in there. We both went back and we were waiting by the curtain for ages. And then they told us, did no one tell you it was a 20-minute break? So, yeah, obviously then we had to go back in, and then things started going through your head a little bit. And, yeah, it was a bit of a weird one, that.
Yeah, I mean, I look back to the final. It started around 7:30, finished around 10:15. What was the experience like playing in a World Championship final for the first time, and such a long game as well?
It was good. I mean, it didn't feel a lot different to any other. Like, you do your best to try and shut things out, don't you? So, I mean, I just tried to approach it like any other game, really. But yeah, it was good.
And there was a lot of talk in the aftermath about the prize fund for the event being slashed. The 100k for the winner cut to a reported 23 grand, and the runner-up that you'd got 35k to 10k. As a player, how hard was it to cope with all of that going on as well in the background?
Yeah, it's difficult. It's heartbreaking, isn't it? I mean, it's life-changing money for us both, really. And then we actually found out the actual figures on the day of the final. So, yeah, to try and pick yourself up after that and try and give everyone a game is difficult. But, you know, we did our best.
Definitely did. And 4 days later, you were at Q Score, and it has to be said, some tough draws over the 4 days. Leaving Wigan after the Sunday, how did you reflect on the week?
Yeah, Q Score's a funny one. I mean, I didn't find it too bad. I didn't play great, but it's difficult dealing with things like the World Championships after. Like, you've got people just all day badgering you about the prize money, and like it's gone, it's happened. You want to forget it and move on, but you're just reminded every 10 minutes. So that's what I find difficult. But yeah, hopefully we'll give it a go this year, and I think it'll be a bit different. So
at the quarterfinals of the Dutch Open, you won the Scottish Open. You were semi-final of the Isle of Man just before the pandemic took over. How were things for you during that first lockdown in the spring?
Yeah, it was going well. I've been playing well for a while, but obviously since this lockdown, I've barely picked my darts up. I mean, I went to the Challenge Tour a couple of weeks ago. And that was the first time I've even picked them up, probably 4 or 5 months. But yeah, I had good spells and bad spells, which was expected.
And we saw you involved with the Remote Darts League as well. That was held a couple of times during the spring and the summer. What was the adjustment like for you playing online darts as opposed to in person?
Yeah, online online darts really isn't for me. Like I say, I played in that remote dart league, but yeah, I've not done anything else. I just really did not enjoy that at all.
So what was the preparation like then in the lead up to the Challenge Tour? We saw it resume last month with the 6 events. When you heard about those events being put on, how quickly were you to put your name in, considering that we've not had darts for a lot of the players for a long time?
Like I say, my preparation for it was just absolutely zero. I've just started up my own business as well, so I've been busy doing that. So I literally did not pick a dart up for so long. But yeah, when I see it was happening, it's just nice to get away for a few days and have a game of darts again.
What was it like turning up to the venue, seeing, I think there was around 200 players for that weekend, seeing all those players again, considering what we've had for the 6 months previous, where there's not been a lot of events going on and people being in person? What was it like seeing all those people and probably some faces that you hadn't seen for a long time?
Yeah, it's good. It's always nice. I mean, to be fair, they run a tight ship there. You didn't get to speak or see people perhaps as much as you want to, which is understandable. But no, it was good. It was just nice to have a competitive game again. And
considering you missed the first Challenge Tour weekend back in January, a very good weekend, finishing 6th on the final Order of Merit, a couple of last 16s there, and of course winning the title on Saturday. What did that win mean to you? Yeah, I genuinely just went there with no expectation. I just wanted to just get out and have a competitive game, and like I said, it was good games, I had good spells, and I had spells which I expected. But yeah, the one I won, I felt comfortable, and yeah, it was good. And that weekend, though, you went into it with no expectations, but it could have opened up a lot of doors for you going forward. You've got the call up for the Winter Series next week when we're talking. When did you find out that you'd got in? And after that weekend, did you fancy your chances of getting that call up?
Yeah, look, because I didn't expect too much, I really didn't look into what the possibilities were with winning one or finishing in the top 8. But yeah, Mac sort of rang me at the weekend last weekend and said, Jim, I think you might be in the Winter Series. I've had a few pull out. And I was like, well, he said, do you want to play? And I was like, well, yeah, let's have a go.
And so what's the preparation going to be like then, or what has it been like? I know you mentioned there you've started your own business, you're quite busy at the moment, but have you been able to put in any more practice ahead of next week?
Yeah, really not. I've had a couple of hours with one of my friends Tuesday night, and that's it. But yeah, I'll have maybe a bit of a throw tonight and then tomorrow, and yeah, give it a go.
And what are you really looking to get out of this week? It's going to be different, I suppose, because usually we have the 2 events at the weekend, but you're going to get 5 events, 5 opportunities to go up against these players, some of the top players in the world, and not beyond the realms of possibility. A good week could get you in the Players' Championship finals, even the World Championship, or is it just a focus on one event at a time for you?
Yeah, it's definitely one event at a time. Yeah, I've come across a lot of these guys before, and beat a lot of them, and on my day I can give it a good go. Like I say, I'm going to go there again, just no expectation, really, just try and enjoy it.
And the top 8 finish as well, that should get you an invite to the UK Open next year. Still a long way off when we're talking, and the current climate, not easy to say. It will definitely be in Minehead with that crowd, but do you feel like you're starting to put your foot in the door in the PDC now?
Yeah, it's difficult to say that because I haven't really given it much of a go, but yeah, that in the future, that's definitely my aim. If I get, like I say, with my business, if I get things settled with that, and then I'll give it a proper go and see where it takes me.
Fingers crossed that. And we should touch on your good friend as well, Glenn Durrant. You've had some great battles with him in the BDO, and only recently him becoming a PDC major winner for the first time. How good was it to see Glenn pick up that Premier League title?
Yeah, it's brilliant. Yeah, I watch a lot of his games. But yeah, it's nice to see him do well. He's a good guy, and yeah, it's nice. Like when we started, or when I started, me and Glenn sort of started the same sort of time, and we were always somewhere near the same in the ranking. So it's nice to see that he's been able to go on and achieve what he has.
And lastly, before we let you go, a lot changing in darts. The WDF, they've got plans for some big events. The UKDA have come in as well. But what would you say will be the memories that will stay with you the most from your time playing in the BDO?
It's been great, it's lovely travelling the world and meeting new people and becoming the German Open, Irish Open, whatever. They're nice titles to have, and you'll always have them. So yeah, I've got good memories of the BDO.
Well, Jim, it's nice to catch up. You well done again on the Challenge Tour win. Look forward to seeing you play in the Winter Series next week, and good luck with your business as well and everything for the rest of 2020.
Lovely, thank you, buddy.
Thanks again to Jim for joining us, and just a quick word on our sponsors, Low 6. Of course, if you listened to our last show, we told you guys about a contest we were running on Friday with all 16 games in the first round of the World Cup, and if anyone got all 16 right, you would be invited on the show this week as our guest tipster. And unfortunately, again, no one able to get the 16 out of 16, but we do have to give a shout out to 4 of you that managed to get 14 out of 16, which was the best that anyone did. Smudger 1969, Smith, KTW, Munchie Boy, and Mac all getting 14 out of 16, all getting £25 of the £100 prize pot that was put on by Low Six. So congratulations to all 4 of those. And of course, everyone wants to know, how did me and you get on, Burton? And a great evening session for me, 7 out of 8 correct, which helped me win 11-9. So really happy with that. But I'm sure there'll be plenty of competitions coming up from Low Six. So make sure you download the Low Six app, 18 plus, UK residents only, T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly, begambleaware.org, and we might see a few contests this week for the Winter Series. If not, I'm sure there'll be a few for the Grand Slam next week. Make sure you download the app and get involved with that, and we'll finish up this show with a look ahead to this week, and it's going to be a busy one. The Tour card holder qualifier for the Grand Slam kicks off 6 days of floor action from the PDC. Who do you expect to see coming through that qualifier?
It's so hard to predict that qualifier. You get some names that you just don't expect each year. Some people you expect should be able to get through it don't. And I guess you can say that about anything, but the Grand Slam qualifier is in some regards fairly unique because you have most of the top players not playing there, but you also have a few of them that are, because they haven't made a final, haven't won a Euro Tour of these over the course of the year. This year, a few people who won Players' Championship events will also get there. But you also look back, and that qualifier has also been like the major breakthrough for some players in the past. You know, you go back to 2015, we talked about him earlier. Johnny Clayton's first big breakthrough in the PDC was winning through the qualifier for the Grand Slam of Darts. It was the only major event he got into that year other than the UK Open. He didn't qualify for the World Championships. He didn't qualify for the Players' Championship Finals, but he won through that qualifier. So too did Steve West. That was his first big breakthrough before he would go on to become a TV regular for a few years, the next couple of years. So this qualifier has produced some bizarre results, but it's also foreshadowed some players who are on the up. I'm not going to make a prediction because it's impossible to predict. You know, you have players like Dave Chisnall, the world number 7 there. You have players, Ian White will be playing it, but he's most likely going to qualify having won a Players' Championship event, but he's not guaranteed yet. So you expect him to be there and give it his go. You know, players like Christopher Tyskie, another top 16 player will have to be there, Daryl Gurney, but they could easily get knocked off very first match by Jeff Smith, who just had a great weekend, or some other form player, or, you know, someone like Nathan Derry, who's won through it before. It's impossible to predict this qualifier, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. If anyone could get maybe 5 or 6 out of the 8 correct, then you're doing very well, because, as you say, look back over the years since they extended the qualifier to 8 spots in 2015, it has brought up a lot of different players, some top players that we expect to come through, some players that maybe we didn't expect to come through. And even going back 12 months ago, Ryan Harrington, of course, the son of the 2-time world match play champion Rod Harrington, coming through that qualifier. And one of the great moments of last year's tournament was being in the press room. I was there for the opening weekend and seeing Ryan win his first game and being sat only a few places away from Rod, who was going through every emotion possible watching that game. It was great to see him, of course, get that win for the first time. And can't remember if we got through that group stage. I think he might have done, actually, but that was a good moment. And these are the sort of stories that can spring up from this qualifier. I know there's a lot of debate on the format for this Grand Slam, the qualifying criteria, and given the BDO and what's going on with that, it could change next year. We could see some new things come into the Grand Slam. But yeah, going into this qualifier, I think we've got 5 players in the top 16 now that haven't qualified just yet. Daryl Gurney, Dave Chisnall, Ian White, Christopher Tyskie, and Mensa Sulic. And I've got to point out as well, you've got players that have played this evening when we're talking in the World Cup semi-finals, Gabriel Clemens and Max Hopp, that were so close to getting to that final and getting that spot. They've now got to come over to Coventry. They're coming over anyway for the Winter Series, but they've got to get over, make sure they're here in time for the 6 o'clock start for the qualifiers. So as much as they've had a good weekend in the World Cup, the preparation-wise, it's not going to be the best for them. So I think we are going to see a few surprise names come through this qualifier. We are going to see some people we don't expect come through, and that's part of the fun as well, because you look at this tournament as well. And I was looking back, the We've only had two ever presents in this tournament that started in 2007. Gary Anderson, James Wade have made it 13 times. Michael Van Gogh, he's made it the last 10. Peter Wright came through one of these qualifiers and he's now gone 7 years making this tournament. And aside from that, everyone else has been in, been out. It's one of those tournaments where you're not quite sure who's going to get in, and yeah, it's going to be fun seeing who comes through that qualifier.
Well, we'll see tomorrow, or we'll see this week, I should say, who's going to get through the qualifier. After the qualifier, there's still 5 more days as the Winter Series gets going. And a lot to play for. Spots in the Players' Championship Finals, World Championship, Grand Slam spot for the best performance of the week not yet qualified, as well as not too early to start talking about saving your tour card. Who do you think's under the most pressure to have a big week in Coventry?
I think there's quite a few, isn't there? And given all the things that people are playing for this week, as you mentioned a few of them there, it's possibly one of the high stakes weeks in terms of darts away from TV that we've ever seen in the PDC. There is just so much to play for and so many players going into this week, and it has been a year that no one could have predicted with, of course, the pandemic and everything. But we have got these run of 5 events, and it's going to give all the players that have been able to enter are able to get over to Coventry a chance to make their season and potentially save their careers as well. You've got Robert Thornton, who was just coming off that appearance in the World Cup at the weekend. He's on course to lose his tour card, a 2-time major winner in the PDC, could potentially be going to Q School. And we've seen before in the past major winners, players that have done very well in the past, make major finals, be in the Premier League, go to Q School, and it's not worked out for them. And that's the beginning of the end for them. We don't really see much of them anymore. So it's a big week for Robert Thornton and a few other players as well with regards to getting to the World Championship. And going forward into next year, if they are able to get in the World Championship, it does help them a lot in that race to save their tour card next year. The likes of Justin Pipe and Jelle Klaassen, and I was having a look as well. They're both not in the field at the moment, but when you look at the performances that they've had on the averages, Justin Pipe's in the top 32, Jelle Klaassen I think is 37th, so they've not performed badly, maybe just not getting that rub of the green that they could get this week. Their luck might just turn around, and they're not too far away from getting in those spots. And another player as well, Darren Webster, he's very close to getting in that top 32 for the Pro Tour, but he's been in the World Championship for the last 8 years. He's had some good runs as well, but it's just not gone for him this year. It's a big week for him as well, because we've seen in the past players that once they miss one World Championship and that follows on into next year, keeping hold of that tour card, the amount of money that is in this World Championship nowadays, you've got to get in that World Championship, or it is hard to keep hold of that tour card. So there are a few players. I'll mention another player who is going to be great to see back involved this week. It'll be the first time that we've seen him since the pandemic and everything happened back in March. Cristo Reyes, he didn't play in the summer series, didn't play in the autumn series, pulled out of the World Cup team for Spain at the weekend, I think to make sure that he was going to be in Coventry and he was going to pass the test and everything to be involved, because he's a player that's never been to Q School. He got his tour card by virtue of getting to the last 16 on his World Championship debut, and ever since then he's had some great times, got into that top 32, but he's starting to slip down. He's provisionally in that top 64 going into next year, but there's not a lot of leeway for him, so it's a big week for him as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of the names I was going to mention, but I'll start with some of the players. You said the World Championship regulars who are just outside, but there's a few World Championship regulars whose spot is not yet safe. You look at someone like Steve West, probably needs only a win or two to stay in the World Championship field, but if he has a bad week, he could drop out of those 32 Pro Tour spots. John Henderson, who's been in the World Championship pretty much every year bar one since moving over to the PDC, had some injuries early on which cost him to miss a year, but he's been now in the top 32 for a long time. His spot is not secure. Benito Van de Pas, he had to go through the regional route last year, but he did, and that's saved his tour card probably. Well, he needs to stay in the World Championship field again this year to save his tour card. He's just inside the field. But there's some, you mentioned the long established players who are just outside and need a big week. But there's some of the younger players who are 250 pounds, 500 pounds outside that also need a big week to get in the World Championship, including Roby John Rodriguez, who we just saw have a great weekend in the World Cup. He's currently outside the field. So too is Josh Payne, who's won a couple Pro Tour titles. Not this year, though. Rob Muhlenkamp, who's made a bunch of semifinals, but not this year. And that's why those players who have now become World Championship regulars are just outside. And then, of course, you mentioned the players who, are former top 16, top 10 major champions Robert Thornton, who are further back, but they need a big weekend. There's a lot, or I should say week. There's a lot to play for both young and older alike in Coventry this week. Anything else for this week?
Just to say thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to our guests, Madars and Jim. Thanks very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll be back very soon to bring you a look back at the Winter Series and hopefully get something in before the Grand Slam. I know we've got a chat lined up with the reigning BDO World Champion Wayne Warren. That's coming up. Got a chat with him lined up later on this week, so hopefully we'll be able to bring that to you and enjoy the week of darts, and we'll be back very soon.
Yeah, we could bring on Wayne Warren this time every year as the reigning BDO World Champion. But yes, thank you everyone for listening. It's a jam-packed month of darts, so we'll try to get shows in whenever we can, and hope that unlike, say, last time when I said Latvia is unfortunate to miss out, haven't already been proven wrong by them getting in the field before we even air our episode. So hopefully our stuff will not be dated by the time it comes to. But it's hard for that not to be, because there's just events almost every day for the next few weeks. That's good for all of us. Well, it's good for all of you. It's bad for us because it means we'll already be wrong by the time our episode comes. But thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to our listeners. Let us know if there's anyone you want on, especially as we get to the World Championship. A lot of players. We've had a lot of the tour card holders. We've had a lot of players from all over the world, but there's still plenty that will be competing, most likely in Ali Pali, in the next month and a half that we haven't had on. So let us know who you would like. We'll do our best to get them on. You just have to hang tight until then.